Well, hello, hello, and welcome to A Course in Miracles. I'm Tomas Garza, your host here, and thank you all for tuning in again. And a special thank you to those who are tuning in from the link on Enlightened World Network's YouTube channel. As you may know, if you've gone back through some of the over 200 now archived videos on that channel, as well as my own personal YouTube channel, you'll know that this began as a live stream on Enlightened World Network. So just a shout out to all of you, and I thank you for tuning in here, and also to the network itself for giving me the platform to begin this journey. I greatly appreciate it. And thanks especially to those of you who are tuning in for your dedication and your practice, your spiritual practice, whether it is A Course in Miracles or something else or a combination thereof. Thank you for being here. All right. So lesson 215 is where we are. Again, we're in the midst of a review period. We're going back and we're looking at one idea a day that we've seen before. One of the obvious purposes of a review is to help jog your memory, like a university class or a class in high school, to jog your memory. And another thing is to see an idea, see a concept, hear a lesson in the workbook for students in A Course in Miracles in a new light, to see it in a new light, to see it differently 20 days or more, or maybe less, after the first time that you saw it. It's interesting because the workbook deliberately posits these ideas in a slightly different way. And if you're familiar with the workbook, you'll know that there is an idea for the day, and then there are sometimes several paragraphs of commentary talking about the idea and giving some suggestions for practice for the way we go about applying that idea into our daily lives. And of course, as with all spirituality, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where it's at. Yeah, that's where the action is in the application. Because we're all really, really good. I mean, each of us, yeah, each of us is really, really good at collecting knowledge. We collect certificates, do we not? We collect degrees. We collect certifications and licensures and all kinds of things that serve as, to us, social proof that we're smart. But the real question is, how much of this, how much of what you've learned are you applying? You know, maybe that can serve as a definition of who's really smart. Yeah. What if it had very little to do with book smarts and doctorate degrees and certifications and everything to do with practical application? Happily it does. Happily it does. That's where spirituality comes in. That's where the magic is, so to speak. That's where the action is. So when we revisit an idea in a review period, we see here, especially in this review period, a much more succinct and slightly different wording than Jesus used to describe the idea originally. It does, in fact, paint the idea slightly differently. The idea remains the same, of course, but the perspective can change, and it's intended to deepen our understanding. As always, in this review period, we start with the central theme that I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. I am not a body. I am free, for I am still as God created me. Oh, yeah. I invite you to sit with that one as long as you like, or as long as is practical. Now, you may or may not, as a practical matter, have carved out 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to do one of these practice periods. You may have significantly less time than that, but happily, this idea is one that, with some repetition, is deeply resonant, and it's easier, frankly, partly because of the rhyming involved, to recall it, especially if you have sat with this already to a degree. If that's the case, and you've truly spent some time contemplating this, you will most likely say that you're not the same person that you were when you started. Let's leave that one at that. So the review idea here in lesson 215 is we're reviewing lesson 195. Love is the way I walk in gratitude. Love is the way I walk in gratitude. Gratitude is a form of love. It's a form of expression of love, is it not? People have, and you may have, gratitude practices. One of the things that I do when I journal every day is specifically list 3 things that I'm grateful for. Yeah, this was a suggestion that a former coach of mine gave to me, and I found it very easy to adopt. It's become a habit of mine, and you may have a different habit, or you may have a different gratitude practice. There are many people out there, you may be among them, that have a journal specifically dedicated to gratitude, which is beautiful. That's a beautiful thing, a gratitude journal, a practice. Maybe it's a prayer that you say. Whatever it is, it's an expression of love. Love is the way I walk in gratitude. Now, the italicized commentary here in lesson 215 is very concise, and I'd like to go through it. Let's all go through this together here. The Holy Spirit is my only guide. Okay. If you're following A Course in Miracles and this is your primary spiritual practice, then right, that's the case for me, by the way. The Holy Spirit is my teacher. I've taken the Holy Spirit, the universal inspiration, the voice for God. I've taken it as my teacher. You don't have to do that. You may have guides or guides. So if you are debating and wondering about the language of that, the Holy Spirit is my only guide, substitute your guides. Your guide, your guides, yeah. Put a different name in there. The Holy Spirit is my only guide. The word guide is beautiful, isn't it? It matters. In fact, each word here in words are, yes, they're just symbols of the thing they represent, but each word in this workbook is deliberately placed. As a teacher, any spiritual teacher simply points. Even though we would love sometimes to erase all of people's guilt with our hands or with a prayer or something like that. That's not the way it works, is it? Yeah. You know, a teacher's not going to wash away all of the ego clinging that you find yourself involved in. However, he or she is going to point to how you resolve these issues, how you clear these blockages yourself. The teacher points, you act. The teacher may very well inspire, may encourage, and uplift you, but you yourself do the actions. Therefore, the teacher is a guide, shows you the way. You've got to walk it. The Holy Spirit is my only guide. By only, what we're saying here in A Course in Miracles is we're not taking the ego as a guide. And you could have more than one guide. If you work with a series of angels or archangels, for example, you might have several that are on your team, right? Your advisory team or your board of directors, so to speak. Yeah, and if that is you, no problem, right? By only here, we're not being exclusive, saying, okay, my building is better than your building. That not that kind of fundamentalism that we see here in the world so often, too often. Yeah. By only, what we mean, we're choosing and selecting as our guide, we're taking as our guide a force, so to speak, that will help point the way out of suffering, that will lead us away from ego clinging. We must walk the path. By only, we're saying we choose love instead of fear. We choose God instead of the ego. We choose the voice for God, the Holy Spirit, instead of the ego voice that keeps shouting at us, telling us we're not enough, that we need to attack so-and-so or such so-and-so group of people. They suck, they're scum, you're superior, you're inferior, you're superior, you're inferior. Yeah, yo-yo, back and forth, right? That's what happens to us when we're caught up in seeing ourselves as separate, choosing love, choosing light, choosing something that makes you happy, choosing joy, yeah, choosing love, choosing forgiveness, instead of the opposite. That's what's meant here by only. The Holy Spirit is my only guide. He walks with me in love. Yeah, the Holy Spirit is love. God is love. The Holy Spirit does not walk with you in condemnation. The Holy Spirit does not walk with you, belittling you, calling you scum, telling you that you're less than someone else or less than everyone else. That voice is the ego. The Holy Spirit walks with you in love, only love. And I give thanks to him for showing me the way to go. Yeah, and I give thanks to him for showing me the way to go. The teacher points, shines a light, so to speak, if that image helps you, of a teacher carrying a torch, a lantern, a flashlight, you know, illuminating the way. If that is a helpful visual, that's what happens. The teacher shows the way. We walk. We choose in the present moment to follow or not. And as you may have experienced in your own life, the more you follow, the more ease you'll experience. The more joy you'll experience, the more patience, more loving thoughts you'll have, the more forgiving you will be. Love is the way I walk in gratitude. All right. This is a very powerful idea. And if you personally do not have a practice of gratitude, I can't recommend it enough. However you choose to do it, to place yourself in the energy of gratitude is to be loving. It is an expression of love. And if you want to look at it this way, it immediately raises your vibration. It instantly lifts your energetic vibration to truly give thanks for what you have. And the practice is exactly the same if you're giving thanks for a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, or if you're giving thanks for something that appears on the surface to be larger, like recovering from an illness, something like that. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. So even what seems to be the smallest act of gratitude is exactly the same as a massive thanksgiving, a massive act of gratitude. Whether it's big or small, those are just distinctions that the ego mind attempts to apply to it. All expressions of love are maximal. All expressions of gratitude are maximal. So when you get yourself in a state of gratitude, you are expressing love. So I invite you to explore that if you already have a practice of gratitude, whether you incorporate it into a series of prayers or meditations or journaling, or whether you post Post-it notes on the wall or a whiteboard or a refrigerator or whatever it is. There are many, many creative ways to do this. I invite you to do that and give thanks today. This love is the way that we all walk in gratitude. All right, we'll see you next time.